Now let's bring in Jamil Jaffer. He's the founder and executive director of the National Security Institute at George Mason Law School. Focuses on cybersecurity, surveillance, and other matters. Mr. Jaffer, we need you tonight. My gosh, this guy was allegedly a known risk. He maintained access. Given your background, what was the most concerning thing that we learned today?
Well, Chance, I think the most disturbing thing that we learned is that he was multiple times counseled about the fact that he had access to classified information, that he was taking notes on it, that he was suspected of taking it out of the facilities, that he was accessing material that he shouldn't have had access to, and all the while he maintained his access to classified information, and all the while the government didn't engage in the kind of monitoring that would have revealed his violent tendencies, his racist tendencies. Again, you know, Chance, what's interesting about this is there's nothing wrong with wanting to have guns or sleeping close to a gun. It's when you combine that with these odd behaviors, with classified material, with these racist tendencies, with the things that he said online that he was disclosing publicly to members of a Discord group, and then you add on to that, Chance, that for months it went on that he was disclosing this information not just to American citizens online, but people he knew were foreign nationals. That's the most troubling, is the government could have found this at any point. They didn't even bother to look.
All these separate items apart are one thing. All put together in that recipe, another maybe. Now, if you're a 16-year-old and you get caught doing 130, your parents don't usually suggest you stop driving. They take your keys. Teixeira kept the keys. He allegedly used the keys liberally, even after getting warned. Is there not a zero-tolerance policy in the military?
Well, you know, at some level, there's got to be a significant action taken against his superiors who saw these activities, counseled him, put it in his file, and then no action was taken. And it looks like, based on Sasha's reporting, that in fact the senior officials who were in charge of that unit have now been suspended pending an investigation to see whether they had any command responsibility for what happened in their own unit. So obviously there were things that were flagged and were not followed up on. That's a problem, and those commanders are going to need to take responsibility for what happened. At the end of the day, though, you know, it really is somebody like a Jack Teixeira and the vetting process that you have to ensure catches somebody like him, the continuous monitoring process that ensures that we find out that somebody's posting classified material online in you know, public or private chat fora. We've got to be able to detect that beyond just by, you know, supervisors catching it in the workplace.
You have held extremely sensitive positions, from the Supreme Court to the government, so you've been in and around this stuff and you know how touchy it can be. Should his superiors have been ringing that alarm bell louder, or do you think you might have a classification, you know, clearance, but you're a person? I go back, David Petraeus. He was running the CIA, and he gave his classified information-filled journals to his mistress so she could write a book. In the end, I think he pled guilty to a misdemeanor. He never went to jail. Does this stuff just happen more than we know?
Well, you know, Chance, it certainly is hard when you rely on people and you entrust them with a level of access to classified information. They can very well print it out, put it in their pockets, walk out the door, give it to somebody else. When they do so willfully, as happened here, happened in the Petraeus case, and happened elsewhere as well. But the thing is, what you have to do is you have to hold people accountable. And to your point, maybe some might argue Dave Petraeus wasn't held as accountable as he needed to be. You look at a case of Chelsea Manning, for example, who disclosed a huge amount of highly classified information. She was sentenced to 30-plus years by a military court. And then ultimately her sentence was commuted by President Obama. And so the message was, you can disclose massive amounts of classified information and you won't be held accountable. So it's no surprise that when we don't hold people accountable, that we get bad results. And so in this case, for better or for worse, the book needs to be thrown at Jack Teixeira. He needs to get a long sentence, and he needs to pay a price for what he's done to send a message to future leaguers that you can't do this and get away with it.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think Chelsea Manning, but I think Julian Assange was the one who published it, and the government is still going after him right now. They still want him, so that's an interesting dichotomy. Do we even know everything Teixeira touched, everything he accessed or sent to a friend at this point, or are they still in the gathering mode?
Yeah. We know for sure, Chance, that there are a tremendous number more documents, classified documents, believed to be well above the top secret level that have not yet been revealed. And there's actually an ongoing concern that members of the media, certain newspapers, have access to these materials and are slowly putting them out in public. That's actually concerning because they know these documents were taken unlawfully, were disclosed unlawfully. And the fact that there's at least one media organization right now actively putting out more classified information that could be very damaging to the U.S. government, it's deeply troubling and concerning. And one wonders what the government might do to take action. Now, of course, there's a lot of sensitivities about the government and media organizations. And so I'm sure the government is very carefully assessing its options. But we know that there are more documents that members of the media may have access to that were on the Discord server, have since been deleted, and now maybe in the hands of folks that are now putting them out publicly.
Let's end with this then. I did not plan on asking you this, but because Julian Assange just came to mind, you know, official media outlets putting stuff out. We're repeating stuff that's coming out right now. And I don't know, sometimes they run that by the government to say, will this torpedo something or not? But some of these disclosures have been incredibly sensitive, and they could have implications right now or in the future, even in, you know, the war going on or relationships with certain countries, adversaries, allies. How should that be treated? Because we've seen a leak through someone like an Assange is castigated. A leak through that gets published on the national newspaper is like, okay, hey, that's a scoop.
You know, it's a huge problem. And in part, in some level in this country, because of our protections of free speech in the First Amendment and our need for a vibrant and open media, we expect some amount of responsibility from the media to take these things seriously and to handle them in a way that's credible. And we've seen that in the past. In the past, media organizations have acted cautiously with classified material and have only released it when it's been released elsewhere, or have taken steps to protect information that might damage ongoing operations or damage ongoing government efforts. In this case, it's not clear how that balance is being made. It's not something we can or should mandate by law, Chance, but it's something we have to expect from our government to do the right thing and from our public media to do the right thing. You can't expect that from a Julian Assange. You can't expect it necessarily from foreign newspapers. You can and should expect it of the American media.
It's an interesting point. And by the way, I'm no Assange apologist. I don't know anything about him, really. I just know that, I mean, he's been used by some maybe shadowy characters, and I don't know exactly what he's up to, but sometimes the avenues of these leaks, you know, you just wonder the provenance of some of this material. So anyway, I want to put it to someone who really knows this topic. National security expert Jamil Jaffer, thanks.
Thanks, Chance.